Most arcade games released in the 1980s were pretty tame compared to the decade that followed. In the early 80s, it was mostly simple single-screen affairs with rudimentary visuals. By the late 80s, the graphics technology had improved incredibly, but it was still mostly bright colors and PG-level material. Among this group was a Namco-developed standout that was shocking to see. Splatterhouse landed in 1988 in Japan and the rest of the world the following year. Its imagery didn't shy away from blood, guts, monsters, and a general horror theme that was far more graphic than the stuff we were typically seeing. It used similar art assets and tropes from your favorite horror films, all wrapped up neatly in a simple beat-em-up where you were trying to rescue your girlfriend. There were weapons, creepy bosses, and a fantastic soundtrack that really nailed the horror vibe. When it came home to a console, it was the PC Engine that got it, a solid port that really did the original proud. That version would also come west to the TurboGrafx-16, which is where I played it for the first time. In the years that followed, Namco switched up things and brought out two sequels to the Sega Genesis, Splatterhouse 2 and 3. These games were met with a mixed reception. Some loved them and some thought they were nowhere as good as the original. I admit I often wondered myself how the first Splatterhouse would have looked and sounded on the old Genesis. 35 years later, we finally have the answer thanks to a project being done by DMM069 and Cyberdeous, as they attempt to port the arcade Splatterhouse to everyone's favorite 16-bit Sega console. Using the power of the Scorpion engine, we now have a playable demo showing off their work, giving us an idea of just how good this thing is going to end up being. The Genesis demo here is very early work, but wow, is this project already onto something. It has the opening cinematic of Rick and his girlfriend making their way through the storm to the house, which looks great and very similar to the arcade original. The mask then revives Rick and the first stage begins. So far the detail is excellent. You see some color variation and some differences in the details, but this is an impressive representation so far. Enemies die in similarly gruesome ways, right down to being knocked against a back wall into a pile of goo. There are two weapons so far, the cleaver and the 2x4, both doing what they do best. The first boss room is pretty much pixel perfect as far as overall faithfulness to the arcade, right down to where the creepy crawlies pop out. Area 2 begins with the screen telling you it's Stage 2, which gives way to yet another great looking representation of the arcade. You get the impaled and chained up monsters in the background, complete with their nasty regurgitations. It also keeps the dead bodies in the foreground. Again, you see some color differences from the arcade, and there are a few animations and sound effects that come off differently, but I was really impressed overall. The second part of Stage 2 was even better. Rick falls down into a waterway that is filled with slimy creatures and their spiky companions. This area is extremely faithful, right down to the way the water enemies splat against the back wall. The demo ends with the boss of the second area, the Haunted Room. Here you will fight against possessed objects that fly around the room. Again, the faithfulness at this early stage gives me a ton of hope that this project is destined for greatness. If you are a Splatterhouse arcade fan, this is already looking to be a must-play. A lot of modern Genesis development is doing things with FM synth that is really impressive. Mega Splatterhouse is no different. Here is a good example of that. As much as the sound and visuals impressed me, what really grabbed me was how well this played. already at this early stage, this plays damn near identical to the arcade game. The jumps feel right, the weapons are perfect, the punches and kicks are right on point. Typically when you play an early demo, there is a ton of work left to get the gameplay feeling proper, but this team has that down pat. There really is no other way to say this. Mega Splatterhouse looks the part, it sounds incredible, and the gameplay is so close you'd need to nitpick it to death to come away less than impressed. Let's do some side-by-side comparisons to get a feel for where things are at. DMM069 has assured me that he fully intends to complete this project and is devoting quite a bit of his time to it. He has praised the Scorpion engine as a game changer for projects like these, and after seeing the results here, I can't even imagine what's on the horizon thanks to the talented fans looking to bring their favorite games to platforms that never received them. For those of you interested, a publicly available demo will be coming very soon, and the third stage is currently being worked on. Once more info is available, I'll be updating this video's description so you can keep up with how things are progressing. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.